So in the 17th century, 18th century, Isaac Newton did this with a glass prism. He used the prism to refract the light, break the light into its components. And the question is then, is the color really on the object you're observing, blue car, red chair, cream wall, or is the color actually in the light itself, in the ray of light, in the wave of light, in the light particles? Where is color? Then we move into the 19th century and we come to a natural philosopher called Thomas Young. And he was the first one to figure out that us as human beings, we got Tri-Chromatic Vision. So this is the human vision. Basically, through some experiments, he suspected that our eyes detect just three key frequencies of light in terms of corresponding colors: red, green, and blue. Now, this is just partially a theory in the 19th century, but it was confirmed later on experimentally in the 20th century, the later 20th century. So it's a relatively new development, and this is basically what we find in the human eye. Um, the experiments performed on the human eye, I trust they're all performed on the dead subject. But basically, when you dissect the human eye, this is what you find. The retina, behind the retina, you have these light detectors, rods and cones. Rods are used to detect just grayscale, black and white. Uh, they're used for us to see things in the dark when it's dark in the night. Whereas the cones, there are three types of cones. They're used pretty much for us to look in the daylight when it's light. And these three types of cones correspond to the three frequencies of light that correspond to three key colors, as you can see on the screen: red, green, and blue. Red, green, and blue. Just as Thomas Young suspected in the 19th century, this has been experimentally confirmed in the late 20th century. So there are just three main frequency detectors in our eyes, corresponding to red, green, and blue colors. And if you look at this, this is an image of a computer screen. It's really magnified. It says P8. Now, how the computer screen works, it's got pixels. Each of the pixels has got three lines on it: red, green, and blue, as you can see. So by the time this light from the screen travels into your eye, the colors combine and they produce an illusion of an image or light. So what you see on TV, on computer, it's not real. It's an illusion. It's all uh, projected through pixels with three lines of color: red, green, and blue, and their intensities are adjusted. So this is a sample here. You have below, you have the image that you see, like white screen, yellow screen, or a face. And above it, you have a corresponding magnified image behind it, which shows you that basically all these images are made from red, green, and blue pixels with varying differences of intensity of each color coming out at us. And also, when we look at the beautiful images uh, of the universe out there, the planets, the galaxies, the images that we see, they're not really real. They're also partially an illusion, but not so much of an illusion as in computer screen, because basically, as you detect light from the heavenly bodies far away, basically what you get is grayscale images. There's no color in them. So in order for us to see these images as they really and truly are, uh, as you would see them if you're right next to them and observing them, this is what you do. This is an image of Mars. And basically you get three images of Mars from a telescope. And then each one of them is filtered through blue, green, and red, green, and blue filters corresponding to the frequencies of light that are embedded into our eye receptors, red, green, and blue. And if you combine these red, green, and blue images, you get a composite image of Mars, and you see it as it truly is, as if you're standing right next to it and seeing it with your own eyes. That is human perception. So wherever we look, um, inside of our eyes, if you look up into the heavens, if you look at the computer screen, everything is based on these three key colors: red, green, and blue. If you look at the Hebrew scriptures, very early in the books of Moses, in the visions in which God appears to the prophets, here starting with Moses, things tend to be very, very vivid and graphic. Obviously, if you read the Hebrew scriptures, you usually read black letters on a white piece of paper. You don't really get the whole experience of a prophet seeing visions, especially visions of God on his throne. They're very vivid and colorful. So in the book of Exodus, chapter 24, verses 9 and 10, we are told, Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of sapphire, clear as the sky itself. Sky blue, sapphire blue pavement beneath the throne of God. This is something that appears first time in the books of Moses. Moses is the first prophet to see this. Blue pavement beneath the throne of God. Hundreds of years later, in as through Moses, God's people went out of slavery in Egypt into the promised land. Now we come back to the place where God's people have gone back into slavery into Babylon now. And here is the prophet Ezekiel, who is in exile in Babylon. He is seeing a vision. This time it's a slightly different vision. I looked and I saw the likeness of a throne of sapphire. Again, we have sapphire blue. Bit more detail now. Above the expanse that was over the heads of the cherubim beneath the throne of God. I looked and I saw beside the cherubim 4 wheels, one beside each of the cherubim. Now these wheels, they appear to make God's throne mobile and dynamic. And at this point in history of God's people, Jerusalem is destroyed and the temple is destroyed. And basically God told them that they have to go there and pray and bring their sacrifices. And now they're not able to do that. And God shows his mercy by sort of with these wheels within wheels within wheels. His dynamic mobile throne comes to them into Babylon itself. And God shows himself in a vision to prophet Ezekiel. And again, Ezekiel sees this blue, sapphire blue pavement beneath the throne of God. And it's all supported with these wheels and the cherubim beneath the throne. Now, if you come right to the end of the story of the scriptures, you come to the book of Revelation, which concludes all the books of the Bible, all the books of the Hebrew Bible, which we call the Old Testament. They all sort of meet and conclude in this book of Revelation. Most of the book of Revelation is made up of quotes, phrases, paraphrases, allusions to the images from the Hebrew Bible, the books of the Old Testament. And here, on this image, this is a combined image. You can see beneath the throne there's blue, and around the throne there's green color. And this image is basically taken from Revelation chapter 4, verses 2 to 4. At once I was in the Spirit, and there before me was a throne in heaven with someone sitting on it. And the one who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian. A rainbow resembling an emerald encircled the throne. Surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were 24 elders. So these visions of God's throne, from Moses to Ezekiel to the book of Revelation, you can see the movement in the storyline. In the beginning, it's very simple. God meets Moses in the desert. There is just God and blue beneath the throne. In in uh, in exile in Babylon, we have wheels beneath the throne. We have this cherubim. Something serious is going on. And here at the end of the story, we have uh, the chapter that worships God as the creator because he created everything. That's why everybody worships God. And here we have this green rainbow resembling an emerald stone. So we have a green around the throne of God. Now we come to the question: what is the color of God? And we think about color of God in terms of human perception, because everything you read in the scriptures, it's all been seen through the eyes of human beings. So we're talking here about human perception, whether God really and truly looks like this, or he uh, shows himself in this manner to us so that we can perceive him. That's a question for a completely different discussion. But this is how God appears. This is how human perception perceives God. I remember when I was around 6 years old, growing up in a country, uh, Yugoslavia at that time, where there was no talk of religion in my family, at school, nowhere, no religion of any kind. It was just not talked about. It was a socialist country, not communist, but socialist country. Again, a religion was not something you would talk about. I remember I was 6 years old, and I asked my grandfather, what's the color of God? He looked at me, and a few people around in the room, they looked at each other. They started laughing. They found it really amusing. There was no answer, obviously, coming to me. Still being curious about this decades later, in the scriptures, in the Hebrew scriptures, in the Bible, there is actually an answer to this question. What is the color of God? And here, as we are told in this vision, the one who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian. Jasper and carnelian. There are some samples here of jasper and carnelian, resembling some sort of reddish color, reddish color. And this is what we have basically. When you come to the end of the scriptures, if you read the whole story from Moses to John and his revelation, we got these three colors that are revealed to us that are related to the throne of God and God's presence. We have sapphire blue beneath his throne. We have a green, emerald green rainbow surrounding the throne, and God himself uh, portrayed to the likeness of the stone carnelian jasper, radiating reddish color from the throne of God. So this is what we have here: red, green, and blue, radiating from the throne of God. This is how the prophets saw God and his throne in their visions, through the human eyes, human perception. And as we reflected on this, it's really interesting that the three colors that are to be found in, let's call it, the home of God, the sanctuary of God, the throne of God, God's home, uh, it resembles our home also. The way our eyes have been designed and created are exactly uh, corresponding to this pattern, because in our eyes we got uh, three types of receptors for light and color. Red corresponding to the frequencies of light corresponding to red, green, and blue color. That is how our eyes have been designed and created to function that way. This is another interesting thing. If you read the scriptures in full color, in 4K, 8K, 16K, in HDR, this is how the prophets saw things. Obviously, when you read the scriptures, you read them as you read black letters on white paper. It's very grayscale. But the prophet saw everything in full color. And you see the descriptions that John gives us in the book of Revelation, they're very vivid and colorful. So we have uh, God appearing on his throne in the introduction of the book, radiated the color, reddish color of jasper and carnelian. Later on, in the middle of the book, you have the sign of an enormous red dragon with 7 heads up there in heaven. Enormous red, fiery red dragon. Again, not exactly the same red as God, but slightly different red. Perhaps trying to fake God in heaven, trying to look like God in heaven, because the dragon, or the devil, as it's explained in Revelation 12, the arch enemy of God, his prime ambition was always to climb on top of the throne of God and replace God, to become God himself. And here we have this dragon, Satan in heaven, resembling the color of God, red. And then down here on earth, if you come towards the end of the story, Revelation 17, we have this woman called Babylon, which sits on the beast. And this woman was dressed in purple and also in red. So this woman, just like the dragon or Satan, is trying to imitate, to replace God in heaven. So this woman called Babylon, representing some kind of false religion or false religions, is also appearing as red or reddish, scarlet red this time. Not exactly the same red as God, but sort of trying to imitate God or replace God, replace God on earth and takes his place. This is what we find. But these are the subjects for some other time. And if you're interested in Bible prophecies on this YouTube channel, there are a lot of videos about that. So this is how the prophets perceived God and God's throne in his visions. They used precious stones. That's the closest to what they had in those days. They didn't have paints and dyes like we have them today, hundreds of different colors. They had these basic colors they could relate to, they knew them, and they used the images of the precious stones to say this is how God and his throne looks like. Emerald green. So these are not just colors. These are transparent, see-through, radiating with light, radiating colors, beaming with light. Emerald green around the throne of God, sapphire blue, sky blue beneath the throne of God, and jasper, carnelian red, radiating from God himself, from his throne. Red, green, and blue. And as I said it already, our eyes, human eyes, have been designed in such a way that we match these 3 colors in terms of our receptors on the retina, the cones that detect color from light, corresponding to red, green, and blue colors, these frequencies of light. This is how our eyes have been designed, to sort of match what's happening on the throne of God. Also, if you look up there into the skies, if you look up, so we look inside of our human eyes to understand our human perception, how it works, and we find the same colors in our eyes, same colors in the throne of God. If you look up into the sky, we find these 3 colors again. If you look at the blue sky, proper blue sky, not a nasty cloudy sky, but the beautiful blue sky, there's one of those key colors, sky blue. It's right there during the day. Now, at the end of the day, when the sun is setting, what color do you see in the sunset, or maybe sunrise? More so at the sunset time. You have the reddish sunsets, don't you? This is corresponding more to a red, a long wavelength of red frequency of light, because it takes light further to travel. In the middle of the day, light travels direct through the atmosphere, through the molecules of air, comes down, disperses as blue, short wave light. Blue is a short wave light. And at the end of the day, the light has to travel cut through the atmosphere, and then therefore you see more of a long wave of light, which is reddish light. It's a long waves. Green light is sort of mid-range frequency of light. It's neither long nor short. It's somewhere in the middle. And even this color you can see in the sky. If you go to the right place at the right time, you can see aurora borealis or northern lights, and they're greenish color. So on this actual image, you see all three colors, red, green, and blue. It's quite amazing that if you look at the skies, you have also these three key colors that you find in the human eye receptors, uh, on the throne of God, around the throne of God, also in the skies. When you look up there, you can see red, green, and blue, these three main colors. If you look at the nature around us, if you look, going from looking up there, look down here around us, if you take a big picture, if you don't look at your flower pots, you get like dozens of different colors. If you just climb up on the top of the hill or a tall building, all you will see is just green and blue. That's it, green and blue. If you look at the distance, there is lots of grass and trees. It's all green down here, and the skies are blue, green and blue. If you pay attention, if you look around the creation around you, you will see these two colors staring at you, green and blue. So even the nature around us reflects these key colors, green and blue, some of these key colors, green and blue. So basically, if you believe that God is the creator and he designed this world and us as human beings and our human eyes with specific design in mind, with purpose, basically what you find is that God created this world in such a way that it resembles his home. God created our home in such a way to resemble his home radiating green, blue, and red. Our eyes are designed in such a way to pick up on these three colors through our receptors in the eyes corresponding to red, green, and blue. If you look at the skies, they've been designed in such a way that you have their three key colors: blue, daylight, red, sunsets, and green, northern lights. And these three colors are there in the light. Also in the nature, this earth is all green and blue. These are the two main colors of the world, the nature, planet Earth, green and blue. But there is one color missing. If you look around, you see only green and blue. What about red, or this color corresponding to this reddish frequency? Where is this color? Well, at the beginning of the story of the Bible, if you read the book of Genesis, if you read that in the beginning, before things turned bad through sin, God walked with Adam and Eve. God walked and talked face to face with Adam and Eve. And if you take it that God appeared to them in the same manner as he appeared to John, Ezekiel, Moses, other prophets, if he appeared to them, he probably resembled these colors again, jasper and carnelian, reddish, radiating reddish light. So in the beginning, the third color was there. The nature was green and blue, and God's presence there brought the third key color, red, in this world. Unfortunately, because of sin, God withdrew from this world, and he took his presence away, and we're sort of left as humans, partially colorblind, in the manner of speaking. We cannot see things as they truly are. And the Apostle Paul tells us in the New Testament that right now, in our present life, our vision is compromised. We can only see like through a dark glass darkly, smoked glass, or we can see only like through a dark mirror, not clearly. He says only when God comes back to this world, only then, when we see him as he is, we will see things as they truly are, because we will be like him. And this is the promise that we have in the scriptures, especially in the New Testament, closing towards the end of the story in the book of Revelation, that God will restore his original design. And at the end of the story, things will be like they were at the beginning of the story. The first two chapters of Genesis, creation, they correspond to the last two chapters of Revelation, the new creation. So the first two chapters and the last two chapters of the Bible correspond parallel each other. Everything in between is mess, 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 mess. It's not God's will. The only place where you find God's will, how this world really should be, and how He always wanted it to be, and how He will make it when He comes, right at the end of human history, without suffering, pain, death, disasters, all this mess. This is what you find in the first two chapters of the Bible and in the last two chapters of the Bible. That's God's will. Everything in between is messed up with human will and human rebellion and the consequences of it. So this is what we find. If you look up there into the sky, blue sky, if you look at the nature that surrounds us, green and blue are the colors of this world, of planet Earth. And God has promised to us that He will restore the third key color. When He comes back to this world and He sets His throne again, He sets His throne actually on this planet, and His presence will be here with us again, and He will be radiating once again the color of God, this beautiful reddish jasper carnelian color radiating from Himself, from His throne. And this is the image that we find. Once we are there at the end of the story of the Bible, unlike today, we will be able to see God face to face. We will be able to talk to Him, and we'll be able to see these beautiful colors in full range, HDR, 4K, 8K, 16K, whatever K. We will see the reality as it is. We will see God as He is. We will be like Him. We will see ourselves as we truly are and should be as human beings. We will see the nature and the universe as it truly is. It will be a true revelation of reality around us. Thank you, and God bless you.